Hi, this is Charlotte Pierce, the producer of Ready Row USA. There's my byline. I am here with three of my favorite rowers, athletes, coaches. One of them my coach or coaches me online. Aquil is our guest from Hydrow, and he's an Olympic athlete. Uh, does many other things, including, I believe, software engineering at Hydrow. Is that?
That
Yeah.
is correct. That is
You're
correct.
so you're in the presence of a cyber cyber rower. Um, we also have Jim Dietz and Mark Wilson from All American Rowing Camp. Been actually around the world with their camp, and we are really happy to have them here. What we're thinking about doing today is talking about rowing clubs, but I think I can guarantee that these guys will digress into some really fun stories. So is we're ready for that. But I just want to make sure you know a little bit about Ready Row USA. Um, we've we see that rowing changes lives in all our various activities around rowing, and we started this podcast and live stream to connect and collaborate with the rowing community. We are go from boathouses to master rowing to beginner rowing to legends and vendors and people that make the equipment that we use. We love rowing. We love talking about rowing, advocating for inclusion and diversity in the sport, and hanging out with rowers like Mark, Jim, and Aquil. So I'm going to go back and do some magic in the background. I'm going to, at the end, I'll show you some of the sponsors. We have um, sponsors from Sykes USA and Burnham Boat Slings. So you guys can take it away, and I'll do that thing in the back.
How
All
did you
right.
guys get that? Yeah, that fancy background there. That's what I want to know.
Mark, I just figured that out, Aquil. I just figured that out. So, yeah, you techno guys, you don't have anything on us over here, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, I'm going to kind of ask some questions, and I'm going to let Jim and Aquil kind of roll with most of the answers. We'll just kind of rotate around a little bit about clubs and rowing in the United States. I think we'll stay with our topic today. But why don't we start with just kind of an intro to where you both, as Olympians, got your start? Which club did you start rowing at? When? Where? And maybe tell us a little bit about your first coach as well. So Aquil, go right ahead.
What is it? Beauty before age, or age before beauty?
That's it. You got it.
I don't know which one is which here, Mark. You set me up for failure. Now, I got my start in Washington, D.C. at Woodrow Wilson High School. So I started rowing in high school, my senior year of high school. And it was Joe Shuttleworth was my first coach, my first rowing coach. And he had the unfortunate task of dealing with me, who was a pretty good athlete at the time, but didn't know how to put an oar in the water. And I think that one of the things that I am always grateful for is the varsity guys who suffered for months of me rowing extremely poorly, but just hauling on it until I actually learned how to row. And I think that for me, that was very important, because I always viewed rowing as a sport that wasn't, athletes don't row, until I started doing it. And to be able to be in a position where I got to row with some guys who were pretty good, or at least knew how to row, really set me up to enjoy the sport, I think, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that was your first in high school as a senior. You were at Woodrow Wilson. That's awesome. Jim, when did you start rowing?
I started when I was a freshman in high school. I was lucky enough that my high school was affiliated under the umbrella of the New York Athletic Club. And Jack Soldier was our coach, and he was considered the Pied Piper of rowing club people back in the day. And his motivation was to start as many high school and colleges around him to be a feeder system for the New York Athletic Club. and the strategy worked. I mean, he started St. Helena's, Blessed Sacrament, New Rochelle High School. He started St. John's, Iona, Fordham, Kings Point, Merchant Marine Academy, Stony Brook. And all those guys rode through the club, and then in the summers they'd row for the New York AC. So we were a very powerful club. Back in the day when the New York AC actually produced athletes, they just didn't finance them as they are today. I think most of the people representing the New York Athletic Club on the Olympic level today don't even know where the boathouse is. So that's a shame, because I think you get more kids involved like we were involved in. Like Charlotte said early in the show, it changed my life, changed a lot of the guys that I rode with's lives, and some of those guys are just getting out of coaching today as well. So they've been in it for a good 50 plus years.
Yeah, I think the commonality between both of your stories is that the opportunity was given and the coach was there and didn't have any preconceptions of really anything other than wanting more people to row, right? I mean, wanted Aquil and the rest of his team to row, wanted Jim and all the folks around New York City to row. And I was the same sort of thing. I started rowing at University of Wisconsin, and my story is there was 200 boys up on the dock the first afternoon, and the coach never made a cut all season long, but through self-attrition, there were 12 of us left at the end of the year.
That's right. That's the way it goes.
And that's the way it goes. And that's okay.
Yeah. People weed themselves out.
Right. And my first coach was Dave Cusick, who just retired from Purdue University this summer. And, he never made a cut. And I think that's just a great thing. So all of us have similar stories. And I'm sure many, many people around the country have that same story. So Aquil, tell us a little bit about some of the clubs that you enjoy rowing from, visiting, and why. Just any place that you've been everywhere.
Well, let me just back up a minute, because although I started rowing at Wilson and then went on to row at George Washington University, it was Potomac Boat Club that really sort of formed, could be considered foundational in my development. I was there for development camps in the summer. Tony Johnson decided that I should scull. In fact, his direct quote was, "Aquil, we've got a lot of good guys coming to row. I'm going to have you do some sculling." And it was really the best thing that ever happened. I mean, I think I was in the top 16 guys there, but the sculling really took my rowing to another level. And I think that foundational at that time, sort of as Jim alluded to, was this idea that you were building athletes that would go on to represent the club and then possibly go on to represent the country. And it was just the sort of the camaraderie. And I think the thing that was done really well at Potomac at that time was providing an environment where the athletes could succeed. Now, there were some things that I didn't agree with, but mostly just along the lines of how much I had to pay. But we found resources, there too, and I think that is sort of what was really helpful for my career. But then, where do I love to row? Oh man, there's so many clubs. I think definitely I love rowing out of Leander. I'm sure as Jim can attest to. But I think that one of the clubs boathouses that I actually really attribute to sort of me making the jump to the next level was Northeastern. I rowed out of the Northeastern boathouse.
Go Huskies.
Yeah, and it was great. Basically what happened was Jamie Coven moved up to Boston and in '99, and I said, I want to go, can I come train with you, Jamie? And he said, sure. I had basically no money. I was lucky to have a job because of where I worked, knew someone in Boston. I was able to get a job. I came up, didn't know where I was going to live, but I just moved up there. And then someone talked to someone else and they said, Aquil, you can put your boat here at Northeastern. And I would row from Northeastern to meet Jamie at Riverside. We would work out, and then I would row back to Northeastern. So I had, just to get to where we were going to work out, I had to row that extra distance. And I really attribute that all the steady state work that I did to rowing out of Northeastern. but it was really great to that's how it works. Like people provide opportunities for you, and with asking nothing in return. Like I didn't pay anything to Northeastern. They just said, here's a guy that wants to row, has some talent, needs a place to put his boat. Boom, it's done. And I think that that's really, for me, like what makes a boathouse, that community, that story to me is like one that I love to tell.
I mention that a lot when I'm talking at different events at different clubs, the welcoming aspect of the clubs in that matter. And, whether it's athletes within your club or athletes coming in from other clubs, everybody seems to celebrate the success of the people on a daily basis when they're going well. That oarsmen seem to understand, and oarswomen seem to understand, that there's so much work involved. And if those people are putting in that kind of work and making those strides, that needs to be celebrated when, they row a max 2K in PR or PR on the water, or win a particular race that they've been shooting for. Everybody is very supportive in our sport that way. I don't think it's selfish at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it is, it's interesting. I think that some of the work we have to do is in our clubs is to sort of make it a bit more welcoming. And I say that in the sense that, I always use this as sort of a benchmark. When you walk into the YMCA, you lay down some money, or you say, I want to go play basketball, or I want to swim, right? And so then when you go into boat clubs, I remember when I was Aquil Abdullah and people knew, oh, that's Aquil Abdullah, he was on the national team. I walked into boathouses, no problem. Like, oh yeah, come on in. But before I was Aquil Abdullah, and I don't think that this had particularly anything to do with my race, it was like, excuse me, how can I help you here? And I think that that's sort of I agree with you, Jim, that like once it's like we need to help this person get to a specific place, boom, it's like our community is very supportive. But I think that initial, like, how do you do is the place where we can work to make our clubs better.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with you. I've traveled, and Jim and I have been doing camps now for 21 coming up on 22 years, and we've literally been to hundreds of clubs around the country and worked with thousands of people. And obviously when we come in, we're invited and so on, but I can, you often do kind of ask around. It's like, how do you do new people? How do new people get involved in the sport? And usually it's a very limited, very controlled manner through a learn to row day or some specific thing, rather than, well, hey, why don't you just come on out and ride the launch with the coach today? Instead of, well, you need to go to a website, you need to do this, right? So I think you're right, Aquil. I think that's a great thing. And I would encourage all the clubs in the country that have programming just to invite people to come to a program and watch. You don't have to.
Exactly. You don't have to get on the water.
You don't have to ask for a waiver. Right. Yeah. So try to make yourself, I guess, if you're listening out there and and you're in a club, think about how new people are welcomed and how you're recruiting people, because obviously almost every club in the country is trying to get more people rowing, right? That's kind of usually the mantra. I've been to several clubs where they say, yeah, we've got enough. But that's very rare. It happens, but it's very rare where we say, yeah, we've got enough rowers. We don't really want any more. Yeah. But those are the ones that are kind of small, and one person leaves, they try to replace it with a one-to-one kind of thing. But I think the idea of just encouraging people to come ride in a launch, or sit on an erg, or explore the boathouse, or if you have tanks, hey, let me show you the tanks and see how this works. Here's an oar. This is what it feels like. That sort of thing would be great.
Well, the knowledge that I have after 35 years of coaching collegiately is that some of the people that you allow onto your team that don't look like athletes at all tend to be the biggest supporters of your team in the long run. I mean, the gals that I had rowing in my Leper Colony 4, which is the last 4 people in the squad, they're the ones that were writing the biggest checks back to that program years later because they got so much out of being part of that team, so it's not all about performance. It's about creating a community.
Yeah, that's the boathouse, the community. Yeah.
Yeah, the club, and I think that's what we all want to be remembering of, whether or not we're in a master's club or a juniors club or a combined club or a collegiate or a high performance club, is to be thinking that different people advance at different stages. Some people they click it right away and they grab an oar and they know exactly what to do. And then there's most of everybody else where it takes a little while, and that learning curve can be kind of long and it can take a little while. So keep people excited, keep people engaged, keep people coming back for the next day. I think it's great. So what's Aquil, what's one of the clubs maybe that you've traveled to, visited, that is here in the United States that's kind of maybe a favorite, that not one that you've been a member of, but just one that you've gone and visited?
I'm thinking of I rode in Austin. I really liked rowing down there. It's just, maybe it's the sun, maybe it's the people, but the walk down that long dock, that hill. It's just a lovely place.
Maybe it's the coffee shop up above where you can get a nice latte after practice. That's all nice too.
All nice. Although I will tell you, I love the fact that when I go to Philadelphia, there's usually an actual working bar in most of the boat clubs to get a beer. And I think that the important thing about that is that it's a place where you just can sit down, and that's where the community can be built, right? That's sort of, so I want to steer away from naming a particular boat club that I love, because I'm sure my inbox will be filled. But what I love are boat houses that have other ways to build community, other ways to engage people, to sort of build that third place where people come outside of work and home, where they get together and they celebrate, whether that's their rowing, whether that's some kids, communion, whether that's some, kid getting to school. That to me is where the sport, what I see in the sport that can really help to build a community.
Yeah.
It's a place where you can hang out, right? I mean, it's literally the clubhouse, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's the bar, or whether it's a lounge, or whether it's the apron of the boathouse bays, looking out at the water flowing by. It's whatever. Having that welcoming, again, community aspect, and a place where you just feel at ease, right? I mean, I think that's really nice. When we finish up doing some camps here in Florida, down here, it's like you just want to stay because the view's so good, and it's and everybody's hanging out and everything. But then the mosquitoes come out down here in the wintertime, and then we got to leave, but that's part of it too.
When you got that nice community boathouse though, with the bar and stuff, I mean, some of them even have restaurants in them. I'm thinking more of the ones in Europe, but those are the clubs where the masters hang around to become volunteer coaches and start working with the kids, and that's a resource that we've lost, Aquil, since when I started rowing. When I started rowing back 58 years ago, there was no masters rowing. The masters in the boathouse were older guys that just wanted to continue rowing, and their paying it forward was that they were going to be volunteer coaches for the high school kids that were there and whatever. Then masters rowing took off, and masters think about their own racing and a little less about the kids. I think you got to throw that emphasis back on the kids, because that's what's going to keep our sport strong and growing. The more junior programs we start out there, the more regattas and things that we have. I mean, you look at how the head of the Charles and the head of the Schuylkill and the other regattas have grown over the years. I mean, we did the reunion of the 1980 Olympic crew the night before the head of the Charles. So 40 years after our boycott year, we had to get together. And Carol Brown, who is one of the members of that team, is still working with the USOC. And when she told the people at the USOC, I'm going to a reunion of my Olympic team, they were like, "You're what?"
Yeah.
Other sports don't do that.
Yeah.
Look at our sport, not only at the Olympic level, but at these head races and stuff. You're having reunions of college crews and high school crews. I think that's something special to our sport. That community sticking together after all those years.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's that we were talking about. I was talking about PBC, but that's one of the things. Every Friday night, we used to hang out on the roof deck.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe have
eating crabs.
Eating crabs, the crab fest, regatta, doing those things. But like that's the type of thing that makes boathouses thrive and makes clubs thrive. And in particular, I'm thinking about something that you said, like over in Europe, where you bring the family to those events, right? And so you don't force rowing on your kids. Your kids are just around it, and then they start rowing, and that keeps sort of the longevity going, rather than I got to go down here, I'm training, and then I'm going to work, and then it's sort of I'll come to an event or two, but it's just not that sort of curation that I think that was there in the past.
For the decade that the New York Athletic Club was powerful, when you went off to a national regatta, the entire family came. Everybody came. It was very much that big circus feel that everybody in the club was going and bringing all their kids and everything else. And you're right. The kids going to the regattas back in those days, they saw the fastest scullers and the fastest crews in the country. I mean, you would see Don Sparrow, who was a world champion in the single, at the local regattas, the guys from Vesper, the guys from Potomac, Johnson, Edmonds, all of those guys. For our kids to see the top in our country, they can aspire to be the top in our country. And for a long time, we moved away from that with having separate championships. And I think it would behoove us to get back in that mode where you're seeing the top people. I'm sure even in New Zealand, Mahio Drysdale would be seen at all the different local events.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an interesting point because, I remember sort of, I talk about, my rowing career in a sort of the non-traditional way. I bumped around. I rowed in Augusta. I rowed in Princeton. I rowed in DC. I rowed in Boston, San Diego. And, during the time that I was actually trying to get to that elite level, I've raced all summer at every regatta. Like I went to Canadian Henley, I went to US Nationals, I went to Independence Day Regatta. I just raced. And then I remember when I sort of like made it to the national team level, like maybe having like 3 or 4 races a year. And I'm just like thinking like, wow, like so like what you're saying, the opportunity to see people in the sport definitely is something that I wax nostalgically about.
But you were learning to race at all those regattas. And I think that's a limitation of our national system today. That, guys that are going to make the national team in the 8s and the 4s and whatever, they're not racing every weekend. I mean, we raced every weekend and we learned from those races and you actually raced yourself into shape. Same thing with going to Europe. You'd go over to Europe, you'd do the circuit, you'd understand your boat speed and how to proceed through a race to get the best out of it, and, this past Olympics, obviously because of COVID, our people probably didn't race until they got to the Olympics, and I think you lose a lot of the fun when you're not out there banging heads every weekend.
Yeah.
So what, let me ask another quick question. We went right into the event side of things. Name some of both of you guys, name some of the most fun, maybe unique events that clubs put on that you either participated in or not. You didn't have to participate in them. But what are some of the fun events that clubs put on that you guys enjoy?
I'll take
go ahead.
That. For us, every Sunday morning at the New York Athletic Club, the coach was a master of seating. So he would have maybe 15 plus single scullers at a starting line. He'd start the slowest guy first and the fastest guy last. And when you got to the finish line, it was a traffic jam because he was so good on the seating that all the boats were coming across the line. But every week you were being evaluated within your group as to how you were doing. And the other trick there was, if you beat a guy, you could move into his boat, if there were club boats, so that was fun.
Yeah. I was going to say, we spoke about the Crab Feast Regatta at PBC. Definitely when it was going on, the Red Bull Challenge out of Riverside was
fun. I can remember going and watching.
Was really fun steak race.
Yeah.
Definitely in Putney, you can't leave out the Green Mountain Head steak race, man. That is just so much fun being up there.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh man.
So what makes some of those events fun? What's the ingredient? So if somebody's out there listening, what are some of those ingredients that make a good event like that?
Oh, obviously the crabs at the Crab Fest Regatta. You have to have a thing. What's the thing? Like the maple syrup of the Green Mountain Head, right?
Yeah.
Like the fact that you're in the cornfield. It is the spectacle. Let's go back to Roman times. You want a good regatta, you have to have a spectacle, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that in all the ones that are named, there's some spectacle. Even the. Go ahead.
Where I'm seeing that now is in the coastal racing. Have you been up to the Blackburn Challenge?
I haven't been up there yet. That's sort of next.
You got to go up to the Blackburn Challenge. James has raced it. I'll bring you a boat if you want to do it with him. 26 miles around Cape Ann.
Oh,
What's great about it is it's for everybody. Somebody might be in a kayak. Somebody might be on a paddleboard. Somebody might be in a fixed seat whale boat type of thing. It's like any craft that will go. And they start the slower boats first and the fastest boats later. So they do have different classes. But what makes it a great event is everybody finishes on a beach. You pull your boat up onto the beach. There's a big tent on the beach. In the tent is beer, barbecue, and a band. And it's just that community again that you're getting around to, where all these people are outdoor people that just love being there. Like running a marathon, you're happy you completed your voyage around Cape Ann without hitting too many crab pots or lobster pots, and you have a few beers and everybody's happy. There's no losers in a situation like that.
Yeah. And I think that so Mark, to your point, that's the common thread to me in all of the regattas that we could go over to the Heineken Cup as well. Like there's just something that everybody looks forward to, right? Of course you're there to race, and some people are there to they have to win, but for everyone there's something, and I think that's sort of what is key to pulling off a good regatta.
Yeah. I think the other thing that is interesting in both of your answers is it's not necessarily a standard traditional 2K or 1K, right? I think a lot of times we get kind of people in clubs, they get kind of hamstrung in, well, we got to do this, or we got to do this, we got to have lanes, we got to have this. It's like, no, you just need to have a well thought out, on the water, safe event that a lot of people can come and participate in. It doesn't have to be any specific distance. It doesn't have to. The stake race that you're explaining, some people don't know what a stake race is, but I think that's great. And then the longer distance stuff, I enjoy the half marathon distance. I think that's a great distance. You can get it done in about an hour and a half. It's not going to take you all day, and it's a lot of fun depending on the waterway that you do. But just putting on that post row show with some local music, having some food, having that community atmosphere, having a place where people can sit and enjoy and talk and meet new friends and enjoy old ones, right? That's what we're all about. So I would encourage clubs out there listening, watching to be brainstorming a little bit, and then don't give away the fun. Most people try to put on an event that's going to become some sort of a fundraiser, and that's okay. Charge a little something and make it fun. Don't overcomplicate things, and just put down the basics that are going to make a safe, fun, rememberable event, and then maybe Aquil or Jim will come up and show up. Who knows? It'll be great. So, we did have a question. Charlotte, can you put that question back up on the bottom of the screen for these guys? Yeah, great conversations. How do you see the value of adding coastal rowing to community clubs and 2 university rowing programs. And how can this be accomplished?
I think it's a win-win situation. First of all, the technical rowing stroke that you would perform in a high-end racing shell is exactly the same stroke that you're going to perform in a coastal boat. The beauty of the coastal boats is they're much more stable. So there you're not getting out there rowing defensively with a boat banging back and forth. You're able to take better strokes. So from a club standpoint, having coastal boats, coastal singles, doubles, and quads, you're going to be able to train people to take better strokes because they're not going to have to worry about the balance as much. So you have those boats as training boats, but you also have those boats as racing boats that can go out and do whatever, the beach sprints or the longer distance races. I really think it's a win-win, and the coastal boats are so much more affordable.
The other thing, and Jim's saying coastal, and a lot of people are seeing this new impetus, from coastal. But as we have all, the 3 of us have traveled to Europe, the other boat class that doesn't really get mentioned enough is the gig.
Right.
And the touring gig quad or the gig doubles or even the 3s that are out there, those are fantastic boats. And again, they're less expensive. They're really nice to row, and you can row them on any body of water in various conditions. So when oftentimes we're in a position where we're trying to find the calmest, flattest, most serene water, which everybody enjoys rowing on, oftentimes that's not really conducive all year long and or all day long. So there's, don't be afraid to look at a gig option as well. For All American Rowing Camp, we now have 2 gig quads, Cox quads, and they're fantastic. And we've added doubles. We've got a coastal double. We're adding coastal singles, and we're getting some other boats from Glide Boat, which are made in the UK, which are similar to the coastal, but they're made out of rotomolded plastic, and they're super inexpensive, but row great, and a great way to get people involved. So think gig, think coastal, think a little outside of the box. And then these events like the Blackburn Challenge that Jim said, those are going to be open to other watercraft as well. So it's not just rowing craft, but there they'll have stand-up paddle boards, you'll have canoes, kayaks, surf skis, and other things that can get out there and make that community of your boathouse or program even bigger. So.
Yeah. I think I agree with all of that. I think there's definitely some challenges from at the college level, and Jim could probably speak more to that, but of adding a coastal program. But I think that one of the things that I am searching for in sort of my payback to the sport is, how do we keep the sport relevant, And I think that more ways for people to enjoy the sport is a good thing. And so, we have to figure out how we integrate coastal rowing into our community clubs and boathouses. So I think it's an important component. I think that, in terms of racing, you can row them anywhere, but I think it's nice to be near a place where you can actually be sort of get the sort of open water experience as well.
Yeah. Well, you think about our country, we've got coasts on either side, and you don't have to go very far from where you're living outside of Boston. That those high school programs there that are just rowing in racing shells are losing a lot of their spring season because of the sea breezes that come in. Out on Cape Cod, myself and Al Flanders out in New Orleans, we'll just take those boats and we'll throw them in anywhere on the Cape in the afternoons when it is choppy, and go out and have a great experience touring around, I was telling Al before I left Massachusetts last week that this summer we have to get his kids that are about as old as your kids, get them out in these gig boats, and we'll just go crabbing and stuff. Just let's row out there and we'll go crabbing off the boats. Let the kids have fun.
Yeah, another thing I do is I got a oar board. I got basically a stand-up paddle board that has a rowing mount on it.
Oh yeah.
And that's been pretty good. I feel comfortable putting the kids out on the Ipswich River with that. At least my oldest, not my son. He'll jump out of the boat. Who knows what he'll do.
James did that too, but it didn't kill him.
Yeah. I'll mention that when we row together this afternoon.
Yeah, there you go.
There was another question, and then I think we're going to be wrapping up here pretty soon. But there's another question. I think this is a really good one. And Jim and I were actually just talking about this about 2 hours ago. So the question is from Sinead: how can we capture the impetus of Hydrow and get these people out of the house and onto the water? And that's something that is great. I was on the phone with a lady this morning who lives in Connecticut, who's rowed over 4 million meters on her Hydrow, loves you guys, loves James, loves you, loves everything about the Hydrow. But now what does she want to do? She wants to row, right? Wants to get out on a boat. So I will guarantee anybody listening here that between Jim Sr. here and Aquil over here and James Jr., we're going to get some people and get some opportunities to get an organized group of people from Hydrow out there on the water. I'm going to tease you with that because I know we're going to do it, and we'll make it happen. So anybody listening that's got a Hydrow, wants to learn how to row out on the water, we will make that happen. I guarantee it.
Yeah. Charlotte's going to eat that up, even though she's already on the water.
There's a lot of people out there that.
The other part about this is that, I view the sort of world of connected fitness and connected rowing in particular as such a great thing for our sport. Because, I tell people we probably had 30,000, and maybe I'm undercounting, people who were at least interested in rowing at the Olympics because they had sat down on a Hydrow, connected with me, connected with Danny, connected with James, connected with the rest of our athletes, and are now interested in the sport. We have countless members who have started rowing, their rowing adventure. I get, where can I learn to row? What should I do to get my kid on the water? And I think that this is part of what we were talking about earlier, welcoming. How do people get welcomed to the sport? And if they have that experience, then they're excited about it.
Yeah. Awesome. I think we're going to leave it right there. I know if that's okay with you, Aquil.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you, Jim?
Yeah, Aquil needs to take a nap before he works out with James tonight because I don't want him to lag behind.
And I know how these conversations can go, but unfortunately we don't have a beer in our hands right now. And we've got to work out, and we've got some more work to do down here getting ready for All-American Rowing Camp. Aquil's got his job to do. He's got to go figure out how to teach people how to row out there on the water.
Yeah, teach James how to row.
And Charlotte's going to wrap us up here, but I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Aquil and Jim for being here, and this is great. So
this is great.
No super formal topic here, but you know what? I think we covered a lot of really good things, and Aquil, your insight is fantastic. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I like it when you guys get into what makes a great rowing club or a great experience for people that walk into a rowing club. So thank you so much. Once again, Aquil Abdullah from Hydrow and Mark Wilson from All-American Rowing Camp and Jim Dietz from All-American Rowing Camp and many other aspects of rowing around through the years and continuing. He's a big advocate of coastal rowing too, which I've started to pursue. Our sponsors include Sykes USA, wonderful company, great customer service, amazing people. Fabio Selvig is representing them in the U.S. It's a Australian company. And I think, Aquil, one of the Hydrow athletes, Mike Dostal, he said he passed me with my Sykes boat the other day, and he said, I used to row those when he started out. And Burnham Boat Slings is another sponsor, recent sponsor. And again, I really love their customer service. They treat everyone like a valued person and customer, and they
great company.
Yes, they love talking about rowing too. You can just go by their booth at the regattas and just hang out all day pretty much. My web designer is Good Inkling. She does way more than I pay her for because she just loves. I don't know. She just does. And I love the site that she just did for me at readyrowusa.com. We'd like to give people some of the giveaways that our our guests are offering for our 30-year anniversary and 100th episode, which I forgot to say was kind of the theme this month. We're going to have about 6 episodes, many different guests from places, people like American Rowing Camp and Hydrow, and we have Nick Karwoski coming on. We have people from NKSports. We have Marnie Schroer from Spokane River Rowing Association. She's a member out there. And so we're just sampling a little bit of the community this month and celebrating being grateful for all of our listeners. So December 14th, 2 p.m. is Tom Siddall and Ryan Worth, who works with Mark and Jim at All American and represents glide boats in the U.S. The NK Sports guys on the 15th. The 28th. Oops, I'm flipping. Help. Oh, God. Anyway, yeah, here they are. The 29th is Allie Abrams of JL Racing and Gel Green of Gel Pads, who makes these wonderful. Let me just get myself.
We taught Gel how to row back in the day. She was a rower at SMU, so you make sure you say hi to her from Mark and Jim.
Oh, I sure will. Yeah, I think she mentioned that when I
came to a couple of our camps.
But she got she made this for me.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. I just love it so much. I'm not going to sit on it, I think, but I'm going to put it on my wall. And then December 30th, we have Nick, and all these people are offering some wonderful giveaways and discounts. Nick's offering a discount on his Tagalong with a Pro project, which has targeted training programs. And I think Aquil knows about that probably. We also want to highlight what's going on at your club. So this episode was a lot about rowing clubs and what makes a great rowing club. We'd like to, hear what you're doing, and like even if you're just a waterside club or if a humble club or a very posh one down on Boathouse Row and Schuylkill. We'd like to hear what works for you, and so there's a form on our website where you can put in, we'll feature you on the podcast, live stream and podcast. Favorite gadgets and gear, please send us in what works for you, and I think we're going to end up with the 3 of you, what your favorite rowing gadgets, gear, or services are. It can be a $5
Mark,
gadget.
you can go first on that one, Mark.
My favorite gadget.
Is it that riser, the seat riser?
No, it's I think my favorite is my good old fashioned cone plastic megaphone. With the hack is the wooden handle that I've screwed onto the megaphone. So 2, my wrist stays flat when I'm talking. I can extend it as I wish. So it's kind of like a pistol grip. Kind of like that, or like I'm holding a cup of coffee. And the other nice thing about it with the wooden handle is that then the megaphone floats. So it does not sink. And I've lost plenty because of not having that nice wooden handle. So that's my little rowing hack that I've created for myself.
I'm told that Jim Dietz doesn't even need a megaphone.
Not usually.
Nope, he does not. I can attest to that.
My favorite rowing thing is the 7/16 wrench. I'm very simple.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow. Old school.
Yeah.
I would say my favorite hack comes actually a la Charlie Butt when we were tuning up for the 2004 Olympics. He took L brackets and put them on the bottom of our oars to get us to keep our oars off the water at one point.
Ah.
So the good old L bracket.
I think of what Charlie did to the lightweight double that year. He was actually pulling them behind his launch, trying to get them to get quick catches. And I thought, whoa, this. Charlie goes places. He does.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does.
Like the commercial out there on TV. We've seen a thing or two. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two, right?
Yeah, right.
And I tell you, I think these guys have seen a thing or two. So
okay, and Our next
Thanks
time
for
we get.
having us,
Thanks,
Charlotte.
Charlotte.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Charlotte.
We'll
All right.
talk to you
Thanks,
soon.
Aquil.
Take care, everyone.
So this guy
That was good.
here, Sean McCarthy, have we heard anything from